The chamber was vast and empty, a sterile room that seemed to stretch further than its walls suggested. The lights above were soft, almost lazy, spilling a muted glow over the polished floor and the cold metal walls. The hum of unseen machinery filled the air, low and constant, as if the building itself was alive and breathing in its own way. At the center of it all, a single human sat on a bench that offered little comfort. He didn't fidget or glance around nervously. He simply sat, upright, calm, and composed. Every movement he made was measured, every breath steady, giving nothing away. The human had been brought here hours ago under strict instructions, and yet he showed no sign of unease. Across the room, a woman stood, her presence commanding attention without effort. Even before she spoke, her aura demanded recognition. Her figure was lithe, almost ethereal, and her movements were deliberate and graceful. She had a way of holding space without moving, a magnetism that drew the eye and the mind. Her eyes were sharp, bright with an intelligence that seemed to see everything at once. A faint pulse of energy radiated from her, subtle but tangible. Even the guards stationed near the exits were visibly tense, their hands resting lightly on their controls, alert but frozen, waiting for her command. She stepped closer, and the human's gaze met hers without hesitation. He didn't flinch. He didn't react with fear. Most beings would have cringed or trembled under such scrutiny, but he remained still, observing, analyzing. His expression was unreadable, neutral, calm, yet beneath it, his mind was working quickly, parsing every detail. The way the woman moved, the slight shift in the light, the subtle sounds of the energy in the room, all of it was data, and he processed it with careful attention. "You are different," she said finally, her voice smooth and melodic, carrying both authority and curiosity. "Most would have panicked, struggled, or pleaded by now, yet you sit unmoved. Do you truly understand the weight of what surrounds you? These walls, these guards, this chamber, all of it is designed to intimidate, to measure your response." The guards stiffened at the subtle change in her presence, but still none dared to step forward or speak. She raised a hand, and the air itself seemed to hum, vibrating as if acknowledging her command. "I am Sarah," she said, her voice echoing faintly now, layered with tones that human ears struggled to comprehend fully. "And you, human, have come into my space. Few endure this long without faltering. You may be an anomaly." "Both," he answered simply. "It depends on perspective." The human's eyes did not waver. He had seen displays of power before, and he knew when the display was meant to test courage rather than harm. "I am about to reveal myself in a way that few ever do," she said softly, yet with undeniable authority. "Few survive it. You may survive it." A sudden motion made the human's senses sharpen. Panels in the walls slid open, revealing patterns that glowed faintly with shifting colors. The light moved almost like living creatures, weaving across the surfaces in fluid motion. Sarah lifted her hands, and the room's energy responded, rising in intensity. The guards at the exits straightened instinctively, their fingers hovering over controls, yet none dared interfere. Sarah's form began to shimmer, not violently, but like a heat wave over a desert, distorting what the eye could see. She spoke again, her voice layered, resonating with a depth that seemed to vibrate in the very air. "This is me, my true self. See it if you can." She was neither fully human nor fully alien, but something in between, something that seemed impossible yet real. And then, almost gently, she allowed the energy to fade, leaving her human-like again, almost delicate. "You have witnessed what many cannot," she said quietly, a hint of awe threading her words. "And you are still calm. I measure I don't react blindly. You've made your display. I simply choose how to respond. But it doesn't rule me." You sit, silent, as if measuring the entire universe with patience no one else could muster. Everything in this room is designed to test you, to see if you will bend, break, or remain steadfast. And now, we see where your choice leads you. I am ready for whatever comes next. I walk it carefully. That is the human way. The walls hummed, the lights shifted, and the air carried the weight of unspoken possibilities. Both human and woman understood in different ways that this meeting was not merely a test. It was the beginning of something far larger, far more consequential than either could yet imagine. The human remained seated, silent, calm, and observing. The woman beside him, Sarah, had revealed herself fully. The exits were closed, and the guards were unwavering in their vigilance. The room had become a crucible, a space where intellect, patience, and courage would determine what could emerge. And in that silence, the human found strength. He was ready. He had survived worse, and he would survive this. Not because of luck, not because of raw power, but because humans had a quality few others did. The ability to endure, to adapt, to understand the weight of the world, and yet remain unbroken. For the first time, Sarah sensed it clearly. The human sitting in her presence was more than a curiosity. He was a force, quiet yet formidable, and perhaps in the unfolding of what was to come, he would change everything. The human remained seated as the energy in the room continued to hum softly around them. The air felt alive, almost as if it could think, reacting to the presence of the two beings within it. Sarah stood, her posture commanding yet relaxed, studying him with a mixture of curiosity and appraisal. Every movement she made was deliberate, precise, almost like a chess master examining her opponent before a game. She had revealed herself, shown a glimpse of her true form, yet her tests had only begun. Most beings would already be trembling, she said, her voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of expectation. They would have reacted to my display with fear, with pleading, or with attempts to flee. And yet you sit, calm, observant, calculating. Only observation and action bring results. Adaptation and endurance. I have studied many species, yet few exhibit the patience you show. It is impressive. She tilted her head, considering him carefully. Do you understand what it means to face a being who can unmake worlds with thought alone, and yet remain seated, calm, and measured? It is to be understood, and only when understood can one survive. The world outside the chamber might have continued its daily routines, but inside, time felt suspended. You speak truthfully, Sarah said at last. Most lie, most invent courage where none exists, and yet you are truthful, not in bravado, but in calm recognition of reality. Courage is a choice. Most believe it is a trait, something born within, but true courage is forged in decisions made under pressure. And what do you make of me? She asked finally. Do you see me as a threat, as an enemy, or something else? Few would answer so honestly. Most would speak of fear, of danger, of overwhelming odds. You do not. Sarah moved closer still, stopping only a few steps from him, and let her hand hover in front of her. A pulse of energy emanated from it, subtle but unmistakable, brushing against the edges of his senses like wind against skin. You have the patience to endure this moment, she said. The calm to resist instinctive reaction. Most fail within minutes, even seconds. Yet you sit, she tilted her head thoughtfully. I wonder if you know why I have brought you here. Worth more, that is yet to be determined. Most species crumble before understanding, yet you endure. In a moment I could make this room disappear, make the floor beneath you vanish, and you would be gone. Yet I do not. I am curious. That is why you remain alive. That is why the doors are sealed and the guards watch in silent obedience. I will learn, and understanding guides our actions. Perhaps one of the few who could survive the trials I would set. Her hands extended, and the energy in the room shifted subtly, forming shapes and colors that seemed to float between them. You must understand me as I understand you, not through words alone, not through fear or intimidation, but through thought, action, and choice. This is how I test beings. This is how I see if they endure. Most cannot, you do, that is rare. Your answers will determine what path we take next. You do not. Not in physical power, not in energy or strength, but in endurance, in the calm, in the ability to remain composed. That is strength few possess. You speak as if you have faced this kind of trial before, yet I sense this is new for you, and still you endure. The human's calm presence countered it, steadying it, almost as if the two were in silent conversation. And what is your way? He asked. To test, to reveal, to measure. I will endure, and I will learn. He had survived the first test, the revelation of her true form, the closing of the exits, the silent evaluation of his will. And he understood clearly that this was only the beginning. For the first time, Sarah sensed that this human might not only endure her trials, but that his presence could change the course of events she had long controlled. And in that thought she found a new kind of fascination, one she had not felt in centuries, curiosity tinged with respect toward a species she had underestimated. The room pulsed again, lights shifting, energy flowing, and the human remained still. Calm, observant, ready. And so the first stage of the challenge had passed, and the real trial was only beginning. The chamber felt heavier now, not because the air had changed, but because the tension between the human and Sarah had grown more tangible. The hum of the machinery around them pulsed in rhythm with their thoughts, subtle but insistent, like a heartbeat echoing through metal and light. Sarah moved slowly, each step deliberate, as though she were circling a problem she could not yet solve. The human stayed seated calm as ever, his eyes following her without blinking, reading her movements as if they were part of an intricate puzzle. "You have endured the first moment," she said, her voice low, carrying the weight of centuries of experience. Most beings falter immediately, unable to reconcile fear and survival. Yet you remain calm, still, observant. I find this fascinating. Fear becomes their master. Humans, you may have a measure of control, but it is unusual, almost unnatural in its precision. A faint glow formed between them, swirling with colors he had no names for, twisting and reshaping constantly. "This is a test of perception," she said. "Not strength, not speed, not aggression. The mind perceives patterns that the body cannot always follow. Most cannot withstand the focus required. Few even attempt it. Will you? I do not act without reason, but I do not refuse a challenge either." The human watched without a blink, his mind tracing their paths, calculating probabilities, noting every detail. "You see, most creatures would panic," Sarah said softly. "They would react to the movement, the change, the complexity, and their minds would fracture. Humans, you endure, you observe, you adapt. Adaptation is the key to survival. Chaos cannot control those who can read it. Patterns reveal themselves to patience and focus. You may possess a strength even I did not anticipate. Observe," she instructed, her voice almost melodic. "Watch how everything moves, how every action affects another, and tell me what you understand. Every action triggers reactions. Every change affects another. Complexity is not chaos, it is a system, and systems can be understood. Only by understanding can survival be assured. Tell me what cannot move and why. Tell me how each part affects the others. Observation allows prediction. Action comes last, and only when necessary. You lack the energy manipulation I wield, the strength I command, yet your mind compensates. Few would endure this without faltering. You endure. Few beings realize that patience is a weapon as formidable as any blade, as any force. Humans, you are stubborn, resilient, and clever. I have underestimated your species." "Now the second trial," she said. "It is one of intuition and choice. You must see beyond what is visible, beyond what is apparent. You must sense the connections and decide which to follow, which to ignore. Most fail at this stage. Few see clearly. I will not act without reason, but I will act when understanding requires it. And that makes you dangerous. That is dangerous. Few could analyze so quickly, so precisely, and remain composed. Most would be overwhelmed, lost, or frozen. Humans, you endure. And yet, endurance alone is not enough. You must also act, and act wisely." "But I will act." "Observation and patience allow understanding. Understanding allows survival. That is the human way. And that makes you remarkable. And yet this is only the beginning. There are further trials, further tests of mind, of spirit, of endurance. Humans, you endure, and that makes you fascinating, perhaps even capable of things I did not expect. I act because it is required, and I learn because it is the only path to survival." And in that, she realized that this human was unlike any other she had encountered. The chamber pulsed softly, the lattice of energy slowly dissolving into the air, leaving the room calm once more. But the understanding between them had grown deeper, sharper. The human had passed the second stage, proving that the mind, patience, and perception could match power in a way few beings could anticipate. And so, as the human remained seated, calm, silent, observing, Sarah knew that the next stages would be even more revealing. Not only of his endurance and intellect, but also of the unique human qualities that could defy expectation, challenge assumptions, and perhaps, in time, change everything she thought she knew. The room had grown quieter, if that was even possible. The hum of the chamber's machinery seemed to hold its breath, as though aware that what was about to happen required complete attention. The human remained seated, calm, watching Sarah as she moved with deliberate precision. She had observed him, tested him, and recognized the qualities that made humans exceptional. Yet she knew the trials were only beginning, and the next stage would not be about perception alone. This one would test adaptability, strategy, and the unexpected ways humans could respond when pushed. Sarah's form shimmered faintly in the soft light, patterns of energy dancing across her skin like living constellations. She extended her hands, palms facing upward, and the room shifted subtly. The walls seemed to breathe with light, shapes forming and dissolving like mirages. "The next stage," she said, "is about choice under pressure. Not fear, not hesitation, but the ability to adapt when conditions change in ways that are unpredictable. Most rely on force, speed, or instinct. Humans, you endure because you can change your approach, see paths others cannot. This will be revealed now." Patterns of light formed obstacles, bridges, and pathways that were constantly moving, folding over themselves, reshaping with a fluid logic that defied expectation. "You must navigate this space," she said. "Not with your body, but with thought, with perception, with intuition. Every choice creates consequences. Every hesitation allows error. You must act and adapt." Shapes folded over themselves, pathways split and recombined, and illusions tried to mislead. Most beings, she knew, would become overwhelmed within moments. Yet the human remained still, eyes unblinking, mind calculating, patience absolute. He began to move his hands subtly, tracing the patterns in the air, aligning his perception with the shifting forms. The illusions that had seemed impossible to track now became manageable. He anticipated movements, predicted changes, and chose pathways with precision. Sarah watched, fascinated. Few creatures could process complexity with such clarity while remaining calm. "You do not act hastily," she said softly. "You observe, calculate, and then move. Few would endure this without breaking. Humans, you are remarkable." The human adjusted seamlessly, his mind moving faster than the light around him, noting patterns others would overlook. He found stability where chaos existed, creating a path through the ever-changing space. Sarah's energy pulsed brightly. "You are not just enduring," she said. "You are mastering it. Most would falter, most would fail. Humans, you create order from chaos, even when the environment defies expectation. Outcomes guide choice." Their combination of patience, intelligence, and adaptability allowed them to see solutions where others saw only obstacles. "You think quickly," she said, voice layered with surprise. "You adjust faster than I expected. Few beings can maintain focus under this level of change. Humans, you are exceptional." "Adaptation requires both awareness and willingness to change," he said. "Rigidity leads to failure. Flexibility ensures survival. Humans, you endure because you can shift, change, and see what others cannot." Sarah's eyes glimmered with a mixture of admiration and curiosity. "You anticipate more than most," she said. "You calculate more than most. You act with precision. Humans, you are a species that transforms challenges into advantage, weakness into strength. I did not anticipate this." "Observation and understanding reveal the path," he said. "Adaptation ensures the correct choice. Action completes the sequence. Humans, you endure where others would fail, and that makes you dangerous in ways that are not physical. Humans," she said finally, "you do not rely on raw power nor on instinct alone. You use your mind, your patience, your perception. You adapt, you endure, you overcome. Few species possess this combination. You are remarkable. That is the human way." The patterns dissolved, the shifting forms fading into the soft glow of the chamber. Yet the sense of accomplishment was not in relief, but in understanding. He had navigated complexity, adapted to constant change, and maintained his clarity throughout. Sarah's eyes softened, but her energy still pulsed faintly. "I have underestimated your species," she admitted. "Not in power, not in speed, not in energy, but in the qualities that matter most. Endurance, intelligence, adaptability. Humans, you are capable of more than I anticipated. Few understand that true strength is not the ability to dominate, but the ability to endure, to adapt, and to overcome challenges that defy expectation. Humans, you possess this. You endure challenges that would crush others. You create solutions where others see only chaos. You are remarkable." The human remained seated, calm, silent, observing, unbroken. He had passed the trial of adaptability, proving that humans could turn challenge into advantage, chaos into clarity, and pressure into opportunity. Sarah stepped closer, her energy pulsing gently. "The final stages approach," she said softly. "Not only will your intellect and patience be tested, but also your creativity, your insight, your ability to influence outcomes in ways that cannot be predicted. Humans, you endure, and that makes you a being worth observing more closely." I endure because it is necessary. I act because it is required. I learn because it is the only way forward. Not only of your endurance and intelligence, but also of your human ability to see beyond limits, to create solutions where none seem possible, to challenge expectations. Humans, you are extraordinary. The human had passed another trial, demonstrating that calm, observation, and adaptability could surpass even the most complex challenges. And Sarah realized, with a sense of fascination, that the qualities humans possessed could change the outcome of events she had long thought predictable. The human remained seated, calm, silent, observing, unbroken. The trials were far from over, but he had already revealed the unique strengths of his species: patience, clarity, adaptability, and insight. Sarah, for the first time in centuries, understood that humans could endure and overcome in ways that defied expectation. And in that understanding, a new phase of the challenge began, one where the human's ingenuity, perception, and adaptability would be tested in ways even Sarah could not yet predict. The chamber pulsed with a quiet energy, a calm that was deceptive, hiding the weight of what was to come. The human remained seated, still as a stone, his gaze steady on Sarah. She had tested him in ways few beings could imagine, revealing herself, showing power that could crush worlds, challenging perception, adaptability, and patience. Yet he had endured, proving the qualities that made humans extraordinary: clarity, intelligence, endurance, and ingenuity. Now the final stage awaited, a test that would combine all the elements of the previous trials and demand more. Sarah moved closer, her energy shimmering, casting complex patterns of light across the chamber. "This stage," she said softly, "is about influence. Not force, not speed, not calculation alone. Influence requires insight, foresight, and understanding of both self and others. It is where choice becomes power, and where intelligence and patience must act together to shape outcomes. That is the human way." He studied them carefully, noting how one shift affected another, predicting outcomes not by instinct but by reasoning. "You have endured everything I have shown so far," Sarah said. "You have observed without faltering, adapted without hesitation, and acted only when necessary. Few creatures can achieve this. Humans, you endure and you learn. Now we see if you can influence outcomes in ways that are unforeseen." "That is what I will do." The patterns shifted faster, forming networks that resembled miniature worlds suspended in light. The human's eyes narrowed slightly, and he began to manipulate them subtly with thought and gesture, aligning pathways, predicting interactions, and nudging events toward balance. Sarah observed the precision, the care, the intelligence with which he acted. It was not brute force, it was insight. Not instinct, it was reasoning. "Most beings would fail here," she said softly. "Most would attempt to control, to dominate, to force results. You do not. You influence rather than overpower. That is rare, almost unprecedented. Observation, patience, reasoning, and action allow outcomes to align with purpose. Where others might see chaos, he saw opportunity. You anticipate more than expected," Sarah said, her voice soft yet layered with awe. "You foresee consequences where others see none. You act with clarity where others would hesitate. Humans, you create order where others see only unpredictability. Patience ensures accuracy. Action completes the cycle. That is the human way." He responded quickly, finding solutions where none seemed possible, creating pathways where the energy had none. The chamber pulsed with the rhythm of his thought, almost as if it were alive to his comprehension. "You do not merely react," she said softly. "You shape. You do not merely endure, you influence. Few beings understand that endurance without influence is incomplete. Humans, you combine both. You are not just enduring this trial," she said. "You are mastering it. Most fail because they cannot see beyond immediate consequences. You see layers, connections, outcomes that even I did not expect. Humans, you are extraordinary. These allow progress. That is the human way." Instead, he analyzed, adapted, and acted with deliberate precision, responding to each challenge without losing clarity. "You have surpassed expectation at every stage," she said softly, her voice layered with admiration and something she had not felt in centuries: genuine fascination. "You endure trials that would break others. You adapt to complexity that would overwhelm others. You influence outcomes in ways others cannot. Humans, you are remarkable, and yet this is not the end. And I influence because understanding demands it." Every layer of complexity he faced was met with patience and intelligence, revealing qualities she had underestimated in humans. "You see possibilities where others see impossibility," she said softly. "You remain calm when the unexpected occurs. You adjust without hesitation. You guide outcomes without forcing them. Humans, you possess a combination of endurance, insight, and intelligence that few species have ever shown. I underestimated you. That is the human way." Sarah stepped closer, her presence immense but no longer threatening. "You have done what few could," she said softly. "You have endured, adapted, understood, and influenced. You have surpassed every expectation, every assumption, every measure I could impose. Humans, you are extraordinary." Observation, patience, understanding, adaptation, action, influence. These are not just traits, they are survival. They are progress. They are the human way. I endure because it is necessary. I act because it is required. I learn because it is the only path forward. And I influence because insight demands it. "I have underestimated your species," she admitted. "Not in power, not in speed, not in energy, but in qualities that matter most: intelligence, endurance, clarity, and adaptability. Humans, you endure where others fail. You influence where others react. You learn where others falter. You are remarkable." He had passed every trial, proven every expectation wrong, and revealed the unique strengths of his species: patience, clarity, intelligence, adaptability, endurance, and insight. Sarah's voice softened further, tinged with wonder. "For centuries, I have measured beings by strength, energy, and instinct. Few have shown me the qualities that truly matter. You have. Humans, you endure, and you are extraordinary, perhaps more than any other species I have ever encountered. Humans, you are more than I imagined. You endure, you adapt, you influence, you survive, and in doing so, you have changed my understanding of what is possible." And yet in that calm, both understood that something new had begun, a mutual recognition of strength, intelligence, and resilience that transcended fear, power, or expectation. Sarah finally spoke, her voice soft, almost reverent. "Humans, you have endured everything I have imposed, and you have done so with clarity, intelligence, and patience. You have survived where others would fail, and you have influenced outcomes where others could only react. You are extraordinary. And it is enough to endure anything, to survive anything, and to change outcomes where necessary. And you are remarkable beyond measure." And in that moment, Sarah understood that humans were a force unlike any other. Fragile in body, yet unyielding in will. Seemingly ordinary, yet capable of extraordinary endurance, insight, and impact. The human had proven that the smallest species could stand against overwhelming complexity and emerge victorious, not through sheer force, but through intelligence, patience, and the indomitable human spirit. The chamber's energy softened, the patterns dissolved completely, and the room returned to calm. The human remained seated, calm, silent, observing. The trials had ended, and the woman beside him, Sarah, had learned a truth she could not unsee. Humans endured, humans adapted, and humans influenced outcomes in ways that few beings could. And in that understanding, a new chapter began, not just for the human who sat in silence, but for the perception of his species across worlds, where intelligence, patience, endurance, and insight could surpass power, fear, and expectation.